292 million gone in just 46 minutes. Guys, you must be seeing this all over the internet right now. DeFi is dead. DeFi is going to zero. RIP DeFi. And this is absolutely serious. If you were planning to put any money in any DeFi protocol to get yield out of it, then you have to watch this video because there's a big chance that your next DeFi protocol is going to get hacked because it has similar misconfigurations. Now, guys, in this episode, which is episode 2 of Decoding Crypto Fundamentals, your host Kapoor and Rohit are going to be doing the DeFi postmortem. What's up, brother? How are you doing?
Hey, Kapoor, thank you for having me back. It's exciting and also concerning. But for first-time viewers who are probably listening to me for the first time, I'm Rohit. I've been in crypto for the last 5 years. I've worked for protocols like Polygon and Socket protocol. And in fact, Kapoor, Socket was a bridge aggregator protocol. So this is a hack which involves one of the largest bridges in crypto. And so I think I have a point of view on it, and I think folks would enjoy it. So let's
It's
get
gonna be
started.
amazing. It's definitely gonna be
Hopefully.
amazing. And for everyone, we have divided the video into 5 chapters, which is gonna be basics until advanced. So we'll be starting with the first chapter, which is the yield stack, where we'll be discussing the basics on what everything is. So firstly, I want to start with very fundamentals and hope everyone is not gonna get bored of it. What is rSETH and why does it even exist?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kapoor. And in fact, it's not only boring, it's foundational to understand what is happening in DeFi today. So, for folks who want to participate in DeFi, who are actually using their hard earned money to earn a yield in these DeFi protocols, and in fact, are even betting on the future of decentralized finance and buying tokens like Aave, like Lido, like Spark, like Jupiter, it's very important that they at least understand how DeFi works. And this is going to be the most critical video we ever make on DeFi. So with that, you asked me the question on what rSETH is. I'm going to first take you through a high level post by Zach Rines, who is a core contributor and also the founder of Chainlink, which is one of the largest oracles. Oracles, as you know, Kapoor, has had a bad name because apart from bridges, the second big infrastructure layer, which is often compromised when it comes to hacking DeFi protocols, is actually oracles. So his point of view is very, very interesting. And I think this gives us the basis for the entire thing, right? Before we jump in and answer the question, like what is rSETH, right? Why does it even exist? Let's try and understand the whole stack, the yield stack, right? So he made this very interesting post, which is now visible on your screen, guys. And I'll caption it and very simply explain to you what is happening here. Now, all of you are aware about the Ethereum mainnet network, right? It's one of the OG blockchains after Bitcoin. It was founded in 2014. And if I take you back to the very beginning of Ethereum, you would remember that just like Bitcoin, Ethereum was also secured via the same consensus mechanism that existed with Bitcoin, which is the proof of work mining protocol, right? Now, the challenge with proof of work mining protocol is that you need a lot of energy. You need a lot of compute, right? You need a lot of electricity to prove transactions are happening properly. And which is why Bitcoin is not able to scale, right? We're now calling Bitcoin digital gold simply because the idea that Bitcoin could be money is broken, simply because the consensus algorithm is just too expensive to run. And that's where Vitalik Buterin, who's the founder of Ethereum, decided that we should now be transitioning Ethereum mainnet, which is the world's magic computer, which is the basis of where the entire DeFi stack was built and runs. They decided to transition their consensus mechanics from proof of work mining to proof of stake. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritties of proof of stake, but here's the TLDR of it. To run a proof of stake network, what you need to do is you need to secure the network. The way you secure this network is through tokens. What this basically means is you have the foundational utility token or the network token of Ethereum, which all of us called ETH, right? Now, this ETH token is used to stake in the network. And if I stake my ETH in the network, I can now participate to be a validator on the Ethereum mainnet. What is the job of the validator? The job of the validator, Kapoor, is to ensure that the transaction that is happening between you and me is secure, and it meets all of the rules and regulations of the protocol, and that it is correct. That's the role of a validator. So now you need the Ethereum token. You need to stake that token in the Ethereum into the Ethereum mainnet contracts, and then use the power bestowed to you as a validator to participate in the consensus of the blockchain. That's the foundation. So that token is ETH, right? And that process is staking. But here's the challenge. Let's say I have $100 worth of ETH and I deposit it into the protocol. What happens next? I had $100 of ETH, I deposit it. Now it is no longer in my access. It is illiquid, right? Because I've deposited it. It's very similar to I have money, but I have deposited my money into a fixed deposit account of a bank, right? Or I have money, but I bought a mutual fund from it. So if I buy a closed-ended mutual fund, it's no longer liquid or it is time locked for a certain time period. That's exactly what Ethereum token is. If I stake it, I lose access to it. So you know how crypto bros are. They're very smart. They want to play around with things. They want to build these like magic castles in the air, and that's exactly what they did. So after a certain time, a certain amount of time, in came a new protocol, and it was called Lido. Now, what does Lido do? Long story short, it said, okay, you have ETH tokens. You're anyways depositing those tokens to become a validator. But hey, what if I give you a liquid token in return? So now imagine I am creating a derivative on top of the ETH that was deposited to stake, and I'm giving you a token back. So now instead of directly becoming a validator on Ethereum, I actually pool the money is pooled into a Lido contract, smart contract. It is deposited into the Lido protocol. The Lido protocol now gives you a receipt token in return, which is called the stake ETH token, which is a liquid token. So I can now use that liquid token and do other things, right? I can participate in the DeFi ecosystem. And why am I doing that? Why am I taking the additional risk of not just earning the basic yield, which is available from the Ethereum mainnet, but also an excess yield that Lido is giving me in return of creating this derivative, right? That's additional yield, right? So that was step one. That's the step one of the yield stack. Now, a few years passed, and in came one of the most revolutionary projects in crypto, also known as Eigenlayer. Now, today, Eigenlayer is very different from what it was back in the day. But Eigenlayer basically said that, hey, look, why not? Why not we use the same security that is today being pooled in the form of Ethereum and securing the Ethereum blockchain to secure almost any kind of protocol, right? It could be a bridge, it could be an oracle, it could be any other kind of application which requires decentralized consensus. And so they introduced what is known as the concept of restaking. How does restaking work? You take your ETH, right? You take the stake ETH that you had from Lido, you deposit it into the Eigenlayer protocol. And Kapoor, this is really funny because now you're using the same fundamental token and you're recycling it. You're recycling it and printing another derivative. And that derivative was the restaked ETH, right? So you get you get restake ETH, but again, the same problem. Again, your token is illiquid, and in comes our hero or the villain, or in our case, the protocol that ended up losing $292 million of users capital, and that's KelpDAO. Because KelpDAO said, hey, you have a receipt from Eigenlayer. Why don't I give you a liquid token in return that you can go around and make even more yield on in DeFi protocols? And so instead of depositing directly into Eigenlayer, I actually now deposit into Eigenlayer via KelpDAO. And KelpDAO now gives me a third token, which is another derivative wrapper on top of the existing wrapper and another wrapper, which gives me more yield, even more yield. So do you get it? This is the yield stack. This is what we have built. We've built a pack of cards like which is just standing out of thin air. And the base token and the final derivative token are all connected to the hip by this very crazy infrastructure built around the network, which is the cause of concern. But that's the yield stack. And that's what rSETH really is. It's a derivative of a derivative of a derivative of ETH.
This is absolutely crazy. So in the traditional financial system, you put money into something, it's locked. You're making yield out of it, whether it be mutual funds, fixed deposit, or anything, which is dividends as well. But here you're just creating things on top of things so that you can make more yield out of the money you're putting. So what's happening is you're just increasing your risk, because when you put your Ethereum, there is, let's say your risk scale is on a scale of 1 to 10, it's 1. But when there is another one, which is Lido, then the risk increases, because now Lido can be hacked as well with Ethereum or Lido, both. One of these hacked, your money is gone, maybe, right? Then you've got another one, Eigenlayer, then Kelp. So this is what restaking is, and this is why this thing right now is absolutely dangerous and serious. So, okay, let's go towards the looping
And
process now.
you know,
Okay, go on.
that's exactly where I was going to, Kapoor, because it doesn't just stop there. Because I am greedy. I'm a greedy degen. What do? I take the restaked ETH that I got from KelpDAO, and I go to Aave, or I go to any other lending protocol which accepts that token as a collateral. Any other lending protocol, right? I deposit that lending protocol into Aave, and Aave has their own list of assets, and each list of assets has a loan to value number attached to it, right? So the more liquid the asset, the more trustworthy the asset, the higher the loan to value. Hmm? So if I have $1 worth of rSETH, I can deposit that into the Aave lending protocol, and I can borrow capital against it. And so I deposit rSETH. Its loan to value ratio was, I think at the time of this hack, 75%. We'll get to it, why this is important. But for every dollar, I can now suddenly withdraw 75 cents of it. Instant liquidity for a token which is a derivative of a derivative of derivative. And this process of me depositing rSETH, borrowing, let's say, ETH from away, and then using that ETH again to go to KelpDAO, again to print even more derivatives, rSETH tokens, and then coming back to Aave to again deposit, again do the same process. Do you see that? That's leverage looping. So
This
I
is
try
this is
to increase
absolutely serious.
increase
Yeah.
my returns by revolving the same capital through this lending protocol. That's looping.
This is absolutely serious, and obviously it creates or makes the protocol very
I don't know
vulnerable
if
as
it's
well, right?
serious or it's a joke, bro. It's a big joke. Anyways, please go on.
Okay, so okay, this was the basics, right? Now hopefully everyone understands the basics. And sorry guys, if you are very advanced in this thing, then you can just skip to the advanced level. You've got timestamps in the video as well. Let's talk about how did this, hack or steal actually happened. So Rohit, just go, let's talk about that.
Yes, yes. So let's go back to rSETH, right? So you have ETH, right? And you were using Lido to get a stake ETH token, and you went to Kelp. Kelp said, "Hey, I'll give you. Why don't you earn even higher yield by restaking your yield, your token via Eigenlayer, and I will give you a liquid restaking token, right? Which is rSETH. So I get an rSETH. I'm dancing and like, wow, this is great. But so far, everything, all of these activities are happening on the Ethereum mainnet. And this is the most important thing, Kapoor, because by till the time everything is happening on one blockchain, which is Ethereum, everything is hunky dory. Why is that? Because it's the same protocol, it's the same consensus mechanism, it is the same set of validators who are validating and approving and regulating all of these different protocols. Because the smart contracts, the code is the law. What we call the code is the law on Ethereum, on blockchains, are all running on the same blockchain, the same public ledger. And so, if something is happening on one end and on another protocol simultaneously, all the validators in the world have a central record of all of it simultaneously. So, the problem is not with the protocol. People should understand the problem that has happened today is not a problem with the protocol. And this is where the magic happened. Right now, let's talk about the hack. How do you siphon off $292 million worth of capital? And this is where things get interesting. This is where we talk about where decentralization actually crashed. That's the most important topic, right? So let's talk about it. When I get an rSETH token, if I am a depositor and I got an rSETH token and I want to make even more money, what do? Kapoor, I have 30,000 chains. And let me just open up this graph, which is very interesting, right? Do you see this interrupt chart on my screen right now?
Yep, yep.
Yes, exactly. So this is a network of network state, right? You have Ethereum, and you have dozens and dozens of blockchains or separate what are known as layer two systems attached to the main chain. Hmm? You have Arbitrum, you have BNB, you have Base, you have Hyper EVM, Polygon, Abstract, Ink, Tempo, and so on and so forth, right? Different chains. So what happens? What happens? If I want to make more money, and let's say Optimism or Arbitrum or any of these chains say, hey, we're running an airdrop campaign. You're gonna be super rich. All you have to do is bridge your assets from Ethereum mainnet to my network, and I'm gonna make you fucking rich. So what do I do? What do I do as a greedy degen? I need a way to move my capital from Ethereum to, let's say, Katana, right? Because Katana has an incentive campaign going on, and I'm going to get Katana tokens if I start using their protocols, if I deposit capital
Yep.
into Katana, right? So I need to move my capital, and that's where a bridge comes in, right? So what does that bridge do? What this bridge essentially does is, what you need to understand is, how does this bridge really work? So what happens is, you have assets on one chain and you want to move those assets to another chain. It's like I'm sitting in Delhi and I want to go to Dubai. What do I do? I'll go to, make my trip, some other application which has a list of, which is a marketplace for all airlines to sell me the cheapest tickets, and I can also saw it on that marketplace. Hey, willing to pay a premium because I want to get to Dubai in the next available flight in the fastest way possible. Or hey, I actually want the convenience. I want a first class ride, right? I want to stretch my legs, so I'm going to pay you a premium. And this is exactly what happens. So if I want to move money from Ethereum to Cardano today, that's where the second stakeholder, or I would say, and that'd be, I'm not going to mince my words, Kapoor, today because I'm absolutely miffed. I'm going to call Layer Zero the villain. This is where the villain steps into the story. What does the villain do? The villain sells a bridge infrastructure solution to Kelp. And they say, hey, Kelp, we can help your users who today hold the rSETH token on the Ethereum mainnet, and I can help you move it across dozens and dozens of chains. And as of today, you could have bridged the rSETH token to 20 plus chains. Please note that because I'm going to come back to the end, Kapoor. 20 plus chains. And all of this traffic movement from one chain to the other was happening through the layer zero infrastructure, which is a bridge. Now, how does it work? How does a typical bridge in crypto work? And this is thanks to my experience working at Socket Protocol. I actually analyzed every bridge solution infrastructure provider available today. So there's Wormhole, there's Layer Zero, there's D-Bridge. There's like a dozen players out there, right? There's Synapse and many, many, many more, which are many of them are now also gone. But what do they do? What do they do? Their foundational approach to doing that is lock and mint. As you can see on this website, Kapoor, on the left, they have three approaches to bridging. There is lock and mint, there is burn and mint, and there is non-minting protocols. So I'm not going to get into all of this. You just need to understand that lock and mint is probably one of the most popular ones to do it, right? And Layer Zero was a lock and mint. So what happens? I need money on, let's say, Katana blockchain right now. What do? I use the layer zero infrastructure. I deposit my rSETH on the Ethereum mainnet into layer zero, into the bridge contract, which is deployed on Ethereum mainnet. So far, no problem because everything is happening on one chain. So I deposit. They lock it up. They lock it up in like some kind of a locker. And then on another chain, on Polygon, on Katana, on Arbitrum, on Optimism, whatever, whichever chain I want to move, I want funds. They will simply mint new funds out of thin air. And they'll call it, let's say if I move it to Arbitrum, they will call it rSETH Arb. If I move it to Optimism, they will call it rSETH Optimism. So basically, it's the same token. So two things happened. One, you fragmented the token, right? Because as many chains I have moved the token, the liquidity is being fragmented, right? New tokens are being minted. They're not the same token. So now you have money on the other side. Now I can use that money and make even more money. Hmm? What if I want the money back on Ethereum? What will you do? You will now again go back to layer zero and you would say, hey, give me my money back on Ethereum. They're like, okay, that's great. I'm going to give you money back. No problem. So what do? what do? They will burn the tokens which they had minted out of thin air on any of these L2s. They're going to burn them. And so, against that burn, they will basically release the tokens which were locked in the Ethereum mainnet locker. That's the burning and minting process. So now let's move forward in the story. Now what happened? Now what happened was, how do you communicate? How do you know that the burn transaction actually happened on the source chain, right? On the destination chain. I'm sorry. So let's say if the rSETH was bridged to Optimism, and now I, as the owner, am asking, hey, release my funds on mainnet. Come on, that's my money. Give it back to me. What do? What they do is essentially they will do a burn transaction, and they have something known as another infrastructure layer. That's called the decentralized, quote unquote, and all pun intended, undecentralized verifiable network. Right? Because what is it? That's another entity which is basically looking at both the chains, observing whether or not the burn transaction happened correctly, and then telling the Ethereum mainnet smart contract, hey, I observed and I sign off that there a burn transaction happened. They destroyed all of these derivatives that were issued or minted on that another blockchain, on another L2. And you can now trust me, please release the money. Got it? All good? Now you must be thinking it's a decentralized verifiable network. Oh, thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
nodes. So clearly that should be great, right? It's as decentralized as Ethereum. Guess what? It's not. And that's where the game happened. It was a one of one DVN, one of one decentralized verifiable network. Kapoor,
So
you should be
you're
laughing.
talking about Kelp's DVN specifically, right?
No, I'm talking about layer zero as
Okay,
a
okay,
DVN
okay,
provider. It
okay.
does not matter whether it is Kelp or any other thousands of DeFi protocols which are using it. DVN is layer zero's infrastructure solution. It's their decentralized verification system that basically communicates across these blockchains whether a burn transaction is happening and informing the source chain. Now you will be wondering, or you should be rather concerned, that how come there was only a single DVN, right? There was just one entity. You know which entity it was that verified that a burn transaction indeed happened for rSETH? Do you know which protocol it was? It
Nope.
was layer zero, Kapoor. It was layer zero. Because layer zero offers their own default verifier. And 47% of the O apps, they call it O apps. Basically, they call these tokens which are being logged and minted on another chain, they call them O apps. 47% of such deployments across blockchains are one of one, and all of them are being verified by layer zero. So it's rather funny for me when, let me just find the cert, when Layer Zero said that, hey, there was no problem with us, right? We were totally fine. It was actually KelpDAO's configuration that resulted in the consequence of this setup. And in fact, it should be very clear because I think this is like an outright lie. The reason I say this is an lie is because on their own document, it's like imagine you go to a car company and you say, hey, I want to buy a car, right? They say, okay, there you go. Which one do you want? Hey, I want I don't know, I want a BMW. I want a BMW 5 Series. Like, okay, there you go. There's the key. Go. But hey, remember, I have installed brakes, but they're the default brakes. They're like drum brakes in the car. But here's the manual. And I am recommending in the manual, Kapoor, I am recommending in the manual that you should shift to, disc brakes. Otherwise, you fucked. And so Kelp is like, okay, you're the manufacturer, you have installed drum brakes. It's fine. I'll use the drum brakes. What's the problem? You're the manufacturer. Obviously, you know that drum brakes work, right? That's exactly the promise that Layer Zero made to Kelp and to the like thousands of other O apps like or other tokens which are using the Layer Zero bridge to mint lock and mint these derivative instruments across blockchains. So I trusted Layer Zero with my money and with their own verifier right? Kelp trusted them because that was the foundational infrastructure that they promised works. And that's exactly what Kelp said. If I like, in fact, if I open the Kelp's response, they said, let me get to the yes, there you go. The one of one DVN setup is the configuration documented in Layer Zero's documentation and shipped as the default. Kapoor, pay attention. For any OFT deployment, these are the omni chain fungible tokens. The same thing, right? Kelp has operated on layer 0 infrastructure since January of 2024, so now almost 2 years, and has maintained an open communication channel with layer 0 team throughout. The question of the configuration came up during Kelp's L2 expansion, and defaults were affirmatively confirmed as appropriate at the time. So, Layer 0 actually confirmed to Kelp that, hey, it's good to go. I'm giving you my thumbs up. My one of one DVN setup works perfectly for a high dollar, billion-dollar TVL asset. So, this is what
Wow.
DVN is.
That's interesting. It's a proper blame game, and it's Layer Zero's fault, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely layer
And
zero's
then and then how
fault.
did it
But we should
happen?
but we should actually pause here before we talk about how exactly did the hack happen. We'll talk about it in a second. But it's important to answer the question, like, is layer zero the only one to blame, right? Because clearly, like, layer zero is blaming Kelp, right? Layer zero is blaming Kelp. Where is layer zero? Let me find out layer zero. Sorry. Okay, here it is layer zero, right? So layer zero is blaming Kelp. They're saying like KelpDAO's rSETH configuration is a direct consequence of a single deviance set. There is a zero contagion risk, and then they said we're built on the foundation of a modular application configurable security. These verifiable networks are independent entities responsible to verify the integrity of the cross chain message. Critically, the protocol does not prescribe a single configuration. Instead, it empowers each app and asset issuer to define their own security posture, including which deviance they rely upon, in what combination, and with what redundancy thresholds. So, what they're essentially saying is, get, hey, look, we're a modular system. We've already told you in the user manual, I've already told you that you should have installed disc brakes. Why are you using the drum brakes that I'm giving you off the rack? So there is two parts to the security question. To who is to blame, right? It's not just Kelp, right? Kelp is also to blame. But in my opinion, Layer Zero is also to blame. But here's the question. Because those are not the only two entities. There are many, many, many places where we could have stopped the hack. There are many places where we could have identified the problem, right? So let's name and shame all of these stakeholders. The first is KelpDAO, because if I am using their protocol to mint rSETH, then it's their responsibility to make sure that my ETH is secure, correct? Now it is the choice of Kelp, and if Kelp wants to move those funds to different networks, like all of these networks which are identified in the L2 interops, page here, if they are using layer zero, then it is their responsibility to make sure that layer zero's security infrastructure is proper, the infrastructure works. But it is also layer zero's responsibility. So, in my opinion, both parties are to blame, but it doesn't stop there. Because for every DeFi protocol that exists, I have these stakeholders known as security auditors, smart contract security auditors. These companies, Kapoor, believe me, they take freaking hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even $1 million and what do? They check the smart contract code. So you check the smart contract code, right? Hey, the contract, is the code logic working? Is the protocol working as intended? Can there be a mathematical, um, you know, um, manipulation that I can do as a hacker to manipulate the smart contract into draining the smart contract of user funds? That's the work that an auditor does. So I am pretty sure that there must have been in the auditor's scope the plumbing as well, because the plumbing is part of the whole protocol. Like for me, think of me, like you and I as an outsider, when I deposit money in Kelp, And whether I use that money on Polygon or Arbitrum or Avalanche or any place, it's the same money, right? So it's the responsibility of the protocol to make sure that my money is safe everywhere, no matter what is the plumbing they're using. So it's not right just to blame layer zero. It's important that you understand Kelp's role. It's also important that you understand the auditor's role. The auditors also fucked up because the auditors should have analyzed this plumbing and identified. Layer zero
So
is
it,
also to blame because how dare they? I'm sorry, just one last point. Because how dare they tell me that this is perfectly fine one of one setup that 47% of their token that has been bridged across chains are using, and now they're telling me, hey, we're totally we're totally modular and it's totally up to the protocol to decide what to do. So all of them are to blame.
it's absolutely crazy. So I saw somewhere on Dune Analytics that still 47% of O apps are using this one-of-one DVN. Isn't that a
That's
major
correct.
threat?
That's a huge threat. In fact, and that's why the contagion rises, right? Because we're looking at the stack. We looked at the yield stack, but it doesn't end there. We also have the infrastructure stack. Everything is connected to everything. So if something breaks at one end, the ramifications of it is at the very other end. And when we talk about the hack, when we talk about what happened with Aave, we'll get the picture, right? So let's move on to Aave, right? What happened at Aave? Let me get that tweet first. So with Aave, yes, okay, I think it's this one or no, not this one. All right, this one, right? So what happened at Aave? Let's get back to the hack itself, right? $292 million. What happened? So, so I am like think of me as a North Korean Kapoor now, right? I'm a hacker in North Korea. I work for Lazarus Group. Hmm? I'm sitting in North Korea. I'm sitting in Pyongyang right now.
Let's go.
And I'm sitting in Pyongyang right now. I have already. It was a very beautiful post by I think it was Stacy. Let me find it out for you. It was like pure gold, bro. Let me see where it was. Then we'll talk about Lazarus. So there you go. Right. So this is me. These are my achievements, bro. You know how today in jobs in general, folks are told to show proof of work, right? Don't show me a resume, show me a proof of work what you've done. This is me, bro. This is me. This is what I've done. This is my proof of work. So since 2023, September 2023, North Koreans put together have Lazarus Group has hacked more than almost $3 billion in DeFi across protocols, across exchanges, not just like centralized. They attack everything that they can possibly find. So they attacked Bybit in February. They were able to catch
Yep,
hold
yep.
of 1.5 fucking billion dollars, bro. Then Ronin Network. That happened in 22, bro. So it's almost now 4 years, 4 more fucking years, and we're still losing money to these great minds, right? So this is Lazarus. So I am Lazarus. My boss comes to me is like, hey, it's been a while. Like the last hack happened in February, bro. We need more money. We need more money. We need to run our, I don't know, ballistic missiles or whatever the programs that I need to do, right? So I am tasked with hacking another DeFi protocol, right? Go find your target. So I go out there hunting. I start to hunt, and I find rSETH. I find KelpDAO. I'm like, wow, KelpDAO, that's amazing. I'm gonna get some money from KelpDAO, right? So what do? I start studying the protocol. I see how it works. I see the infrastructure that's built around it. I go through the smart contracts first, and I find those smart contracts to be razor tight. Like there's no way I can manipulate the core smart contract deployed on mainnet to drain the funds. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And damn, I suddenly land onto the decentralized verifiable network. Ta-da! That's layer zero. So I look at the decentralized verifiable network, which is the communication layer between different blockchains. Now you remember earlier in the story I told you like how my users are greedy, my degens are greedy. They want to make more yield out of the yield that they're already leveraged looping on Aave. So they want to go take funds to Ethereum, from Ethereum to let's say Polygon or Avalanche or wherever, and they go to Avalanche, right? So let's say they take the funds to Avalanche. So I see That users have bridged almost $292 million of rSETH across blockchains. Hmm? I'm a North Korean hacker, and I look at the DVN configuration, Kapoor, and I see, hey, I need to convince only one verifier that I am the legitimate user who is who wants to burn the tokens that I bridged and unlock the tokens that exist on Ethereum mainnet. I want to do that. I want to convince this one verifier, just one. What do I do? I use a complicated or not so complicated methodology, right? And so what they do is there is something known as an RPC node. Hmm? What is an RPC? An RPC, is basically, think of it as like these telephone towers. Right? I'm simplifying it for our audiences, but think of it as like these telephone towers. So if I want to talk to you, Kapoor, today, how does it happen? How does this communication happen? It happens through the radio waves through these networks, right? Electricity goes into
Yeah.
this, right? It transforms it into some other kind of wave. Then it moves via these towers, and then you are the intended recipient. But what if I want to do it in a way that is secure, right? That's where army, and other these intelligence agencies, they try to use encrypted solutions. Hmm? But what if I want to fool you that, hey, I want to talk to Kapoor and convince him that it's indeed Rohit speaking on the other side. So what I'm going to do is and I'm a hacker. I'm not Rohit. I'm the North Korean hacker. So I'm going to poison. I'm going to poison the network. I'm going to poison the node. That's the starting point of the communication. I'm going to poison it. I'm going to use some kind of a system that actually creates my voice, so you don't know it's not me. And I send you a message, Kapoor. I have burnt my tokens on the destination chain, and I want my locked tokens back. You are layer zero, right? You are the verifier on layer zero. You get this message, right? You get this message from this poisoned node, from this poisoned RPC, and you instantly believe it. Why do you believe it? Because you're just one person. There is no other person to verify it against. So immediately, as soon as you get the message like, "Hey, tokens burned," the verifier tells the contract on the Ethereum mainnet, "Hey, everything's fine. The tokens have been burned on the L2 on this destination chain. Please return the assets to the user." So now they created this fake message, and that's the phantom packet. That's the phantom packet that we were talking about, Kapoor. So they basically sent a fake message because there is only one verifier. Layer zero ended up believing it, and they unlocked the tokens on mainnet. So now, within 45 minutes, $292 million worth of assets that existed on these various L2s were approved via this verifier on the mainnet, and the money was received by the hacker. Now he has $292 million. That's the hack. So it's not a protocol
And
hack.
once,
Let me be clear, it's not a protocol hack.
okay.
The infrastructure was compromised. The plumbing that connects these different blockchains, these different protocols, those pipelines
So
were poisoned.
wow. And once the hacker actually has the rSETH, because it's not real money, right? It's phantom token. So how do you convert that? What happens
Yes.
from there?
Yes. So now what options do I have? I have now $292 million of rSETH. What do I do? What do I do? I'm like, if I sell this token in the market, Kapoor, if I go and sell, what do you usually do if you want money? You sell the tokens in the market, right?
Yeah, but you
You sell
cannot.
it out.
But you cannot.
But what if you could have sold? You could have still sold the rSETH token because there are liquidity pools
Yeah.
available on various
Oh yeah,
blockchains for it.
100%.
But if
100%.
you would have done that, instantly you would have created an alarm because the liquidity is not deep. So what do I do in return? That's where the AAVE story comes into the picture. And that's where Chaos Labs comes into the picture. And I'll talk about the so-called risk managers of DeFi. Motherfuckers. Anyways, what do they do? I don't want to sell it because I will raise alarm bells. Kelp will know, Layer Zero will know. There are like thousands of other white hat hackers who are constantly looking at blockchain data. They will know. I want the money because I want to, I don't know, have more girlfriends for the heir apparent. So what do? I go to Aave, and Aave did something crazy. Aave said, "Hey, you know what? I have a market for rSETH. You can actually take the rSETH that you have, you can deposit it into the Aave protocol as a collateral, and all of this is now happening on the Ethereum mainnet, Kapoor. You can now deposit that token into the Aave protocol and borrow money against it, because that's how the lending protocol works. So I deposited all of this $292 million in Aave, and I said, Aave, hey, what's the loan to value ratio? Loan to value ratio, Kapoor, is the percentage of how much money I can borrow against the collateral I provide. So for all assets on Aave, they have a specific loan to value ratio depending on how much they trust the asset. So if you have BTC, you could get like 95% loan to value. If you have USDC, you could get like 100% loan to value. If you have rSETH, I have a little less trust on rSETH. So I will only give you 75%. So these hackers deposited $292 million and they withdrew. How much? $230 million. That's approximately 75%. So now I have all the money. Now, Aave has their own system on to detect all of this. That's called Guardians. Their role is to basically make sure all the transactions are clean. So the Guardian network was able to identify that this is a malicious transaction, but they were only able to do it after an hour. And do you think the Lazarus group, the North Koreans, are waiting for an hour? No, they did it in like 45 minutes. They are extremely super skilled. Look at their track record, bro. These are the kind of coders that I want if I ever start a company. If I start a software company, bro, because they're excellent, right? So they got $230 million out of it from Aave. So now that's how they actually got the money. Now comes the most important element, and this is the fourth stakeholder. So let's rewind, because we spoke about a lot of things. So there's KelpDAO, which is basically the original entity which had all of this money, right? You have layer 0, which is the entity which allowed them to move that money across chains. You had Aave, which is the protocol which was used by the hackers to withdraw the money. And now comes the risk managers, the so-called risk managers of crypto, who can't even spell out risk, if you really ask me. They can't even spell the word risk. Anyways, what did they do? So all of these lending protocols, whether it's Aave, whether it's Morpho, any of them, they have risk managers. What is the job of a risk manager? Their job is to evaluate the token. And let me find out if I think I opened it somewhere. I think it was this one, right? No, or this one. Da 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 da. 1 second, bro. I think it was somewhere here. Where it is. Da, 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 da. Okay, no problem, no worries. But I'm not able to identify it. But let's have this page open in front of our audience for a bit, because I'm going to talk about Chaos Labs. Chaos Labs is the risk manager of Aave. It is their responsibility to give the loan to value ratio and evaluate the risk for each of this token. Now imagine, Kapoor, if you were the risk manager and I at Aave, at Chaos Labs, you are being paid as per this report from AIXPT. You're being paid $2.4 fucking million a year as Aave's risk manager. So is it not your responsibility to assess the fucking risk for all the assets that you're going to loan against? Right? You will do that, right?
Obviously, yeah,
What are
yeah,
you're
obviously.
going to look at you're going to look at who is the token issuer. What is his capability? What is the infrastructure that he is using? Is that infrastructure safe and secure? They did none of that. They did not even check the configuration that it was a 101 DVN. And they gave a loan to value ratio of 75%. In fact, there was another entity which was very interesting. Look at this. Aave's risk manager Token Logic. So Token Logic is just like Chaos Labs, another entity which is a vendor to Aave, which was on Aave's payroll, just like Chaos Labs was, receiving money, who were actually also getting paid by KelpDAO for treasury management. And they were the ones who pushed for 86% loan to value for rSETH as Aave collateral. They disclosed the conflict. That's not the point. But even they did not identify the one of one DVN. So what is the role of a risk manager? Which is why when you asked me who is to blame, the risk managers are to blame. The auditors are to blame. Kelp is to blame. Layer Zero is to blame. Aave is to blame. Five entities. Who do you pin the blame on? This is what the core of this issue is.
It's absolutely serious. And also, like, okay, so Aave was actually hit at the worst moment possible, right? Governance in on risk. You've got key risk managers, the Chaos Labs leaving, already left 12 days before. You've got major architectural transition happening as well at that time. So what's the forward looking thing for Aave now? What do you think is going to happen in the future? Because TVL has already dropped from what 17.5 bill to 8 bill, which is 60% drop, right? 50 to 60% drop. What is the future then?
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer, Kapoor. But let's start with this whole story, right? Because it's important to have some context. So the hack happened on, I think the announcement came on the 18th of April. On that date, Aave's total TVL was $27 billion, $26.4 billion precise. And since then, from 18th till 20, that number went from 27 billion, almost 26.4 billion, to 17.9 billion. So how much is that? $7 billion, close to that, or more, $9 billion. So they, in the span of 2 days, they lost $9 billion of their TVL, which has, as you can see on this chart, remained largely static since the beginning of this year. Right, I can like take this up further as well. Like, look at this, look at how consistently their TVL has been in and around the 25 to 30 billion dollar mark for the longest time. Hmm? But this one little incident has now pushed the TVL down from 26 to 15, $16 billion. Now, I don't want to talk about much detail about Aave because I think it's a whole episode, Kapoor. But let's try and understand this. Chaos Labs announced that they're going to leave. Their reasoning was that, hey, Aave is now deployed across 20 plus chains. We're only getting $2 million. We need $8 million to do the work that we do. What is the work that they do? They do the risk
Yeah,
weighting. They give you the loan to value ratio. These people could not even check the deviant. What are they asking $8 million for?
exactly.
So there's
Yeah,
so there's one. So Chaos Labs left. Then Aave Chan Initiative, which is basically led by Mark Zeller, who's a big name. In fact, I found this very interesting tweet. Let me see if I can find it for you. So and I think I tweeted on it as well. It was somewhere here. Let me grab. Yes, check this out. So somebody tweeted that I feel like if Mark Zeller, Kapoor for context, was the founder of Aave Chan Initiative. He was the guy who was behind all of the Aave governance. Hmm? And so the tweet was that I feel like Mark was still around. He won't just accept Aave holding the bag due to the negligence of other parties, right? You understand, right? Why they are holding the bag? Because if I put in rSETH, the rSETH token, which I put in as collateral, is now worthless, and the Aave protocol now holds it, and that is zero. That's worthless. So he's saying that Aave wouldn't just accept holding the bag due to the negligence of other parties, but would be strongly advocating for redressing through whatever means possible. Aave holders are victims, but it seems like they are being portrayed as whatever, dot, dot, dot. Mahak actually responded to it. He said, I would have handled things very differently, but I am no longer management in Aave in any capacity. The next line is very, very important. Stani, for context, Kapoor is the founder of Aave. Stani wanted full control. He has it, but it comes with all of the weight of the outcome. So here are people who are openly now taking advantage of the situation to rain hell on Stani and on Aave. And they are being so, you know how we say they're being very timely in trying to take advantage of the situation. So Aave is in a mess right now, and which is why I think there was this post on Morpho actually, because Morpho Blue grew 14% to $2.4 billion in TVL during the same 72 hours, 18th April to 20th April, when Aave lost 33% of its deposit. 47 new isolated markets have been launched. $340 million have been migrated directly from Aave into Morpho, guys. Kapoor. 340 million. So Morpho, which was the number two, which was gunning and waiting for one mistake on Aave, They got the opportunity. And I've always been very bullish on AAVE, on Morpho. So 340 million. Gauntlet's Morpho Vault passed rSETH borrows 6 hours before the exploit went public. So Morpho has now become a beneficiary of this, and I think Aave is in a tight spot. I'm not saying that they're not going to recover from it. I'm sure they will. It's not like all of the capital will go away, but this is really a bigger question around DeFi. But the story isn't over, Kapoor. We still have a very interesting last bit of it, which is basically me trying to, now I have borrowed all the money, right? I'm the North Korean Lazarus guy, and I want to take it out. I'm going to finally take it out. How do I do it? That's the quick question. Let's talk about that. What happened? So I am a hacker. I am the North Korean guy. I'm like, okay, I have $230 million. I've now borrowed it against the collateral, and I want to move that money out. What do? I will use all the mixing services. You know the mixing services in crypto? Tornado Cash, Monero, Umbra, all of these so-called privacy protocols, the privacy meta that many YouTubers on X and so-called KOLs on X are selling big time. I can use these so-called privacy protocols to basically put all of this filthy money, this dirty money into a mixer grinder. The mixer grinder runs. And when you open the mixer grinder, you just put your hand in and take some money out, and you will not know whose money it was. So on the other side, I am now laundering money via using this smart contract, this privacy protocol, and moving money out. And so they were able to withdraw almost all of it. But 30,766 ETH was bridged. The money that they borrowed from in the mainnet was actually bridged to the Arbitrum L2, Arbitrum blockchain, by the hackers. And while the hackers were sitting and thinking, okay, what do I do with this money? How do I launder it? Arbitrum got hold of it. They tracked the transaction, and they're like, hey, this is the same money. This is the money that they borrowed against all of that fake collateral. And Arbitrum has something known as the Arbitrum Security Council. Now that's a very fancy name, right? Security Council must be like the United Nations Security Council. Nothing like that. It's a group of 12 humans, 12 people, 12 entities, whatever. These 12 entities, each of them control a wallet, and they are single-handedly responsible for what happens on the Arbitrum blockchain. So they decided, they voted, all of them, these 12 people basically got into a room. They were sipping pina colada or whatever they were doing. And they said, hey, this is laundered money. Let me get it out. So imagine now, you're the hacker, Kapoor. You're the hacker. I say, you're thinking that, hey, all of this is blockchain. All of this is decentralized, amazing. Nobody is able to touch my money because my keys, my cash, right? Something like that. Not your keys, not your crypto. The popular meme, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? Arbitrum decided that I can actually put my hand into your jar, take all of the candy out of your jar, and put it into my jar, and you can't do anything about it. That's exactly what they did. They took all the money out from the hacker's wallet, which he was thinking is decentralized, so can't be touched. And he put it into the Arbitrum wallet, which is controlled by this security council. And so while now two questions arise. One, Arbitrum is so great. They actually saved me money. Like if you were the guy who had deposited money in Aave, right, today, in Kelp, you would be breathing a sigh of relief, right? That at least I can get 25% of my money back, if not the whole thing. At least there's some semblance of comfort. So you're happy. But now imagine tomorrow, the United States government thinks that Kapoor makes a lot of videos where he's too critical of the regime. He's too critical of our president, our crypto president, DJT. And they suddenly say, hey, Arbitrum, Kapoor has some money in his wallet. Take it out. What do you do then? And that's the big question. You can compromise decentralization. You can create all good marketing language around your protocol and call it decentralized. But if this is the reality of DeFi today, then we should not call it DeFi. We should call it multi-sig-fi, because there are just 12 people who are deciding what happens to your assets. And that's the big story of DeFi.
Wow, absolutely crazy. This is amazing, man. What do you believe the investors or people who really want to put their money into DeFi should do right now? Because DeFi was supposed to be the safest place. Like Aave
Yeah,
is the safest place to invest your
yeah,
money in. What do you
yeah,
do in brief?
yeah, yeah. A great question. Love it, love it. I love this question. Okay, first you need to understand, right, that you need to understand DeFi. You need to understand what you're putting your money into. That you can't be an idiot. You can't just be willy-nilly believing everything that you like reading. Like, okay, this is decentralized, blah blah blah, marketing language, blah blah blah. Some so-called KOL on X with 50,000 followers telling you this is great, or some YouTuber telling you this is so awesome. No, you got to do your own research. But what is it that you need to understand? Here's what you need to understand: that there are three parts to it, right? There are three solutions that are emerging from this. The first solution, right, is that we have to accept that North Korea is a state sponsored economic terrorism group. And so you have these developers who are sitting in like rooms like this in their homes and trying to make the financial infrastructure of tomorrow that we believe the world will use. Correct? So it's like a David and Goliath story. Hmm? So what you need to understand is that for these people, it's going to be very difficult to kind of challenge the might of the Lazarus group because it's state sponsored. So now you're going to have like there are three essentially three roads. We're at this fork on the road, and there are three roads going from it. Let me tell you each of the road, and I will let the people decide because I'm nobody to like make a call on this. The first road: everything should be permissionless. I am a decentralization maxi, which means everything happens on Ethereum. And Ethereum is the foundational like layer to secure the assets. Nothing else will do. That's the layer. That's first layer. That's where protocol. That's where the whole ZK EVM race is going. Like there are these L2s which are saying we're gonna use Ethereum as the foundational economic layer and the settlement layer. So we are not responsible. Ethereum will guarantee your assets. That's the pure play version of it. That's the second road in the fork. The second road says, okay, for the most important assets, let's use Ethereum. But for everything else, for day-to-day payments, if I want to send $100 to poor, I don't want to pay like $100 fee to Ethereum, right? I'm going to use something that I pay cents. I'll use Polygon. I don't mind,
True.
even if that's centralized. So that's two most important assets on Ethereum, and if everything else, which is like more operational day-to-day thing on any edge chain, does not matter. Now the third road, and this is a very dangerous road. The third one, this is where the politicians come in, and we tell them, "Hey, Clarity Act is coming. Clarity Act is coming. Let's have rules and regulations for the DeFi people." The moment they do that, DeFi breaks and crypto finishes. So I think the most pragmatic, practical one is the second route, where Ethereum is that chain which is decentralized, censorship resistant, everything immutable. And if a hack happens, it happens. North Korea makes money. But for everything else, you have a centralized player. I think that's where the industry is heading to next.
That's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And yeah, guys, 1 hour long
One
session. Amazing, man.
hour.
Well done, bro. Well done. Rohit, like pretty amazing. This was immense amount of knowledge. We
Hmm.
are gonna be posting it soon today. And guys, like the video, you have to, because of his hard work, the research, and we'll be doing much more every single week. We'll be doing these fundamental videos. You tell us the topic and we'll do it on that. It's going to be Rohit talking about it, teaching us, and we're going to be listening, asking questions. If you have any question, put it in the comment section and we will answer. He will answer if it's difficult. But
Hopefully, I'll try.
yeah, do you have anything before leaving? Because I think we are good. Like we are absolutely good
Yeah,
here.
we're on the hour, Kapoor, but I will just leave
Yeah.
a parting thought to all of our users that a lot of people are commenting on X that this is the end of DeFi. I think that's where we should end. Is this the end of DeFi? I don't think it's the end of DeFi, because if you really look closely to this hack, as I've explained, hopefully people understand it, that the smart contracts were not hacked. So we have we've proved that those smart contracts work, right? We've proved that decentralized money works. What broke was the plumbing, the infrastructure around the whole thing, the things that are connecting one protocol to another, the thing that is connecting one blockchain to another. So what we need to pay attention to as an industry is not just auditing the code. We should expand the scope of the audit now. Just like we have the yield stack, Kapoor, we should have an audit stack. The whole industry should create a huge fund, like $1 billion fund. Ethereum, Solana, Arbitrum, Polygon, all of them should pool that money, and they should make sure that not just the smart contracts are audited and properly working, but also the plumbing works. Because if you look closely, all of these hacks in the last 3.5 years have been hacks of the plumbing infrastructure. That's my last point. So DeFi
That's
is
very
great.
interesting.
DeFi is great. Infrastructure is where the weakness lies.
That is very interesting. So it's not the DeFi, it's the plumbing problem, which can be fixed. All right,
Which is
guys.
why Kapoor, AAVE at this tape is a very interesting buy, not financial advice, guys.
Yeah, nice. All right, guys, we'll end this now. Thank you so much, Rohit, for coming. We'll see you next week with
It
a
was
new
my pleasure.
topic and more alpha. Guys, smash the like button and go subscribe to Rohit's channel as well. His Twitter, everything is in the description. We will see you later. In this channel, we're also doing trading videos every single day where I'm trading, literally, with proper risk management. I will see you there. Until then, take care. Bye bye.